Good morning and welcome to Weekly Wake Up. It's always a chance for Boulder Valley School District employees to join me and for us to have a conversation about the reintroduction and all the different things that are going on in the school district. We also often try to bring in folks from either our school district or elsewhere to talk about, how we can improve ourselves, how we can learn from each other, those kind of things. And that's actually the focus of today's Weekly Wake Up. We're going to be talking with Chai Kim, who is with Pure Edge, and we're going to be talking about stress. We've had plenty of stress here lately. The idea of really being in the middle of a pandemic with all the fears and concerns around the health aspects of things. Just this week, as you know, we just switched over to fully remote that starts tomorrow. And so a lot of our educators are going to be working today in order to make that switch happen. We know that that's stressful. Every transition that we go through is stressful. So I think it's perfect timing. I do want to remind everybody before I turn off these slides that if you have any questions, we always welcome them. We want them to be on topic, and please be succinct in your questions so that I can try to answer them or ask them verbatim. But you want to send those to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/BVSD and we'll be looking at those during the show. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off real quick here. Let's see here, find the right spot. It's stressful to deal with with technology, and actually, I know that Chai's been dealing with that. We'll talk about that in just a second, a little bit. But good morning, Chai. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. It's Chi. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It happens. It's all good.
I don't know why in my head it was Chai this whole time, and even more stressful on my side right now as I feel completely
No, you should not be stressed at all. It happens.
And I will say, Chi was wonderful enough a couple weeks ago to join the cabinet team, which is why I should know her name because we spent a good chunk of time with her, in which she kind of went through the same presentation. Oh my goodness, I am feeling so awful right now. But
do not feel awful, please. This is with everything going on in the world. I'm just so grateful that I'm here, and I'm grateful that you invited me, and I'm equally grateful for anyone tuning in. Just all the educators in this country have been nothing short of extraordinary, and I'm just so grateful to be helping in any way that I can. So,
and to speak about Chi's background, she was named the Chief Executive Officer for Pure Edge back in March of 2018. So she's been in this position for a while. Previous to that, she was the Chief Strategy and Operations Officer since 2016. Prior to that, she was a school superintendent. So she knows our business well back in California. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And you also were a former school principal, teacher. I don't know that you could ever be a former any of these things. You always have part of that in you, right?
Yes, definitely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I started teaching straight out of college. I was actually trained by the Marriott thinking I was going to go into hotel management. And in 1990, we actually ended up, there was a teacher shortage in California. So I became a teacher. What was supposed to be a 1-year stint in the classroom ended up being 9 years as a classroom teacher and assistant principal, and then went straight into administration. And I've been serving in public schools mostly for almost a little over 25 years. I did a short stint at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I've been the rest of this time in the last 5 years, I've been with Pure Edge Inc. We're a private operating foundation. And what we do is we provide professional development and direct service for stress management and mindfulness activities for both the adults in the systems and also students. And on the other side of our house, we're a grant maker. And so we fund larger national organizations like CASEL, the National Commission for Social, Emotional, and Academic Development, and some other national organizations specifically that support whole child development and social emotional learning.
As I was mentioning at the beginning, you really did start the day and on your phone right now because of a fair amount of stress that you had to endure. Your computer crashed just minutes before the show was supposed to start.
Actually, it crashed about an hour and a half ago, and it has been scrolling. I don't know, for those of you who are going to be preparing for the remote learning, this is just par for the course, right? This is what happens when you go into technology. And so I think one of the things, I tried, and I'm thinking, okay, there's nothing I can do to make this computer go faster in trying to reboot. But one of the things I did know is, having this conversation today is just a reminder that things happen, and many things are out of our control, but it's the way in which we respond to them. And so I figured you'd be a little bit more forgiving, just given our topic today. But I think also too, I just didn't want to let anyone down and then, cancel because my computer was crashing. And I think one of the things I'm reminded constantly of, if you're all going and shifting to remote, one of the things is, what do you do when there's no power, or when there's things that happen? So sort of a lesson for me, and a good lesson and reminder that how we approach situations matters a ton. And I think you made me feel so comfortable. I'm like, okay, here it go, a Monday in 2020, because it just keeps on giving.
Right. I mean, and that has been sort of the topic of this year, is this idea that it just
Yeah.
feels like, I know some people have joked, probably not very funny joke, but it feels a little bit like Hunger Games, or some sort of disaster film or whatever, where every corner that you turn is a new challenge, a new
Right.
craziness, a new disaster. We in Colorado have had wildfires.
Yep.
Again, we're having to move back to remote learning right now. I mean, it just seems like this year will not give up in terms of sending us new curveballs. Is that what you're
Yeah.
hearing from other school districts too?
I mean, we work with, in the last probably 3 or 4 years, we've worked with over 75,000 adults. We've served over 100 districts, and national organizations and state agencies, and all over the country. Everyone is dealing with the uncertainty, the lack of sort of, state level guidance, lack of federal guidance. All those things are going across the country, and you've got different parts of the world. They've got floods, they've got other kinds of natural disasters as well. And I think one of the main, for us, our main desire and mission and goal is to support the educators who just continue to give every single day, and to the best of their ability with all of this uncertainty. And two things happen with this uncertainty as well, is that it starts to become debilitating if we allow it to, and really just trying to figure out how to manage some of the anxiety that's just coming our way. And at the same time, especially for an education, is not only responsible for your own sort of well-being, but you're responsible for all the well-being of the young people that you serve in your community. And then on top of that, when things are uncertain, parents get into the mix, or caregivers and guardians, and they want answers as well. And so we're always kind of constantly going around and trying to figure out how to communicate with all of our constituents and the communities in which we serve. And so across the board nationally, everyone is dealing with very similar situations. You're opening one day, closing the next, spikes, percentages. And so really trying to follow the science and doing the best thing we can. And ultimately we know, and we know this to our core, that every person in education right now is doing their best to keep everyone safe first and foremost, and then making sure from that safety aspect how we continue learning, and providing those supports for the young people that you're, tasked to serve.
I know
So,
that once the computer's back up, we're going to talk about the science behind it all. But are
yeah.
there pretty simple things that you kind of tell folks to remember right up front, in terms of, and I was just thinking about, talking to some of our mental health folks, or on Friday, in regards
Yeah.
to, students and parents, and their biggest feedback was this idea that you have to, and we've been saying this since the beginning, but you have to kind of give yourself a little bit of grace, right? Like
Oh,
this,
yeah.
it's not going to be normal during a pandemic.
No, and the thing that's really hard, I would say, at least for me, being a teacher, I like control. I want to be in control of a situation. I want to be able to have these pieces, so I know what my lessons are going to look like. And I think the pandemic has actually sort of underscored the fact is, what happens when things are not in your control? There's lots of things that are happening to you. So what are the two things that you have control over? I have control over my reactions or my responses. That's number one. And number two, what are the things that I know I can communicate that shows the person that I'm with that reciprocity? When I'm joyful, I know that the person I'm with can also be joyful. If I'm stressed, I'm going to give off that stress. And so that's sort of what we're going to cover today, is how the neuroscience actually impacts the way in which we interact with other human beings. So,
I know I say this a lot in terms of, all kinds of things, leadership, et cetera, but I think all of us kind of, to a certain extent, believe that we should be the experts of ourselves, and
yeah.
yet this is complicated stuff, and your body reacts in certain ways. And I think,
Mhm.
it's one of those kind of
Yeah.
deals. I mean, I guess if you read a whole lot of books and get educated about it, whatever, but it's not something that just is like, dealing with all these stresses. I mean, this is just not something that's natural, and it takes kind of getting outside of yourself to kind of be able to figure that out, right?
Well, yeah, and I think what's happening right now, especially I would imagine with all your teachers and your educators, and just in folks that work in your school district, is they're actually taking on so much of the anxiety that one of the things that I think that we're going to try and at least help a little bit with is your body is communicating with you every single minute, every moment. And right now, I would imagine there is a fair amount that your body is telling you that you're refusing to listen to because you're too busy, right? You got to get over and kind of accomplish these tasks. We are trained in education to complete a lot of tasks. And I think when we know that our body's complicating that situation, my neck is sore from staring at the screen. My back might be sore. I might be clenching my teeth at night. I probably am not sleeping very well. All those kinds of things are indicators that your body is holding on to all of the stress and anxiety that's coming your way. And so I think part of that is really just allowing yourself to feel and know how to respond when your body's communicating. So I'd love to be able to just start a little bit with just a practice as we're opening up the day, if
Yeah,
that's
please take.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so as you start to think about coming here, it's Monday. It's a Monday in 2020, not to be confused with the Monday in any other time period. But as we start to sort of come to, I'm sure there's lots of feelings about how, tomorrow's going to go if we're fully remote again, and just trying to figure out, what that means sort of for the holidays are coming up and everything else. So what I'd love for everyone to do is just take a deep breath through your nose, and then we're just going to exhale through our nose and nice. And just kind of come into the space as best as you can. And just focus on your breath. And if you feel safe where you are, you can close your eyes. And just let your breathing guide. Just focus on the inhale and the exhale. And nice deep inhales through your nose. And we're really going to exhale through our nose. And if you feel comfortable, you can find a place, we call that an anchor. You can put a hand over your heart and one on your tummy. And then that allows you to feel your breath as you inhale and exhale. And as you're focusing on your breath, I just want to remind you how grateful I am, again, to be with you, and how grateful I am for you all and the work that you do every day. And just as a reminder to be kind to yourself, that you're doing your best. People care about you, and you're so important to so many people in your community and outside of your community. Just take in the breath. Just allow yourself to feel the inhale and the exhale. Your mind is probably thinking of lots of different things, and that's okay. Just going to take a few minutes just to be here for you. You might notice that your heart is racing a little or not. Just focus on the inhale and the exhale. There's nothing special about that. Just focusing on you. Great. You can go ahead and open your eyes and let your breathing go back to normal. And I would love to just start off with just asking you, and I know there's no place right now in this format, but I would love for you to just think about where you feel stress in your body. Where do you feel stress in your body? I just think about that just for a minute. I'll give you some of the most common examples that we get from the field. Think about that. Where do you feel stress in your body? Right? It could be in your jaw. You might clench your teeth. You might get headaches. It might be in your stomach. It might be in your lower back, your neck, maybe your upper arms, maybe your feet. Where do you carry stress and where do you feel stress in your body right now? As you're thinking about that and where you feel stress, it's very easy to identify. Everybody knows where that feels, right? And now what I would like you to do is I want you to think about, and it's going to take a little bit longer, where do you feel joy in your body? When you're really happy and you just know, it's just sort of like, where do you feel joy in your body? Think about that. And we often find that participants have a hard time identifying where they feel joy in their body. It's really easy to identify the negative sort of impacts of stress. But where do you feel joy in your body? Some people say it's in their smile. They can feel it in their tummy, in their hearts, sometimes in the same places that you might experience stress. Well, one of the reasons why we talk about that is when we can identify and listen to our bodies, it's much easier to provide some kind of antidote in the opposite direction. So, for example, when we feel stress in our bodies, we are using the way in which our body holds the stress. We are going to actually try to train it. And we have three simple strategies: breathe, move, and rest. And one of those things that we just started with breath, we do know that the neuroscience tells us it's connected. Our breath actually can activate our parasympathetic nervous system much quicker, but it's a specific kind of breath. So we do know that when you go into fight or flight mode, when you're in panic or if you have anxiety or stress, you can hyperventilate, and that actually creates that heightened sense. And so you're always constantly in fight mode or flight. But when we actually start to think and focus just on our nasal breathing, so if anything that you come away with as an adult today, we're going to actually just focus on, we have a nose, and we're going to actually just focus on using that. And our nasal breathing actually helps build and activate our parasympathetic nervous system, the system that allows us to go back into homeostasis when we're in flight mode. And so when we practice nasal breathing, that actually accelerates the ability for your body and your system to go back into balance. The reason I brought up the stress and the joy and where you feel that in your body is that the human body is actually, and this might be more underscored now more than ever, we are wired in our DNA to look for negative things, to survive. And because hundreds of thousands of years of survival in our DNA, we actually focus on the negative because we do know when we focus on the negative, we're more likely to figure out how to survive that impact. And so, because it's in our DNA, and now as an evolved species, we tend to go to the negative, and it's very quick and active. But as soon as the positive pieces come into place, it takes almost 10 to 20 times longer for those positive interactions to sort of get ingrained in our memory. So, for example, right now, if we're constantly looking for danger, it actually allows us, that negativity bias is very real. It's not something that we seek out, it's just something that's in our DNA. But what we have to do as just practitioners and educators is we have to really focus and flip so that we actually have to practice positive thoughts. It's a practice, and it's really easy to go into the negative. I doom scroll all the time on my Twitter feed, right? And so every negative interaction I see on a Twitter account or a Twitter feed, my brain really has to have 5 positive interactions for that one negative one to go away. And you can think about that as you are thinking about any of, just in this school year alone, for any one of you, if you think about one negative interaction, right? How long that stays with you in your heart and in your head. And it could be as a teacher with that one student, right? That you might have had a beautiful day and a beautiful lesson, and one student, there's something that happened or an interaction that might, impact that. And also happens when personal relationships as well, right? All these negative experiences go right into your heart and head, and things that you cannot forget. It just is almost like it's like Velcro, it just gets stuck. So one of the things that we try to do with practicing positive thoughts is that we actually try and figure out a way that we can identify when we're feeling that sort of tightness of the negativity and flip it so that we practice our positive thoughts. But one thing I want to try and do for you right now is give you another strategy, because we're going to actually go in and out between interactivity and a little bit of just listening. And I apologize that my computer is still going up and down. But so this is called even and even out. Remember, as I shared with you, nasal breathing. Nasal breathing does a couple of things. One, when you actually intentionally practice nasal breathing, it allows you to activate your body in your parasympathetic nervous system faster. But what it also does is there is one nerve in your body. It's called the vagus nerve. It touches every single internal organ in your body. And when you practice nasal breathing, it actually tones that vagus nerve for it to allow your organs to operate more smoothly. So they call that toning the vagus nerve. It's VAGUS as opposed to VEGAS. So it's a vagus nerve. But that nerve, again, is from the base of your cranial, goes all the way through and touches every single organ. And it's a superhighway of your body. So this is called even in and even out. And if you feel comfortable and safe, you can close your eyes. Or if you don't want to close your eyes, you can just do a soft gaze on your keyboard. And we're going to actually inhale through our nose 1 on the count of 1, and we're going to exhale 1. We're going to inhale 1, 2 through our nose, and exhale 2, 1 through our nose. We're going to inhale 1, 2, 3 through our nose, exhale 3, 2, 1 through our nose. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2. Exhale 2, 1. Inhale 1. Exhale 1. And let your body just breathe back to normal. And that's called even in and even out. For those of you who are having a really challenging time falling asleep at night, I don't know about you, but I have terrible insomnia, even for the things that we do during the day. But if you have a hard time sleeping at night, one of the things that really does help at least get you back down to it's usually when our mind races because it's quiet. You all know all the rules of, putting your phones away and all those things, which is almost impossible for some because we use it as our alarm and everything else. But if you end up having challenging time falling asleep, that even in, even out, you can start because you're counting up and it's forcing you to focus just on the counting and the breath. One thing that you can try, if you had a challenging time trying to getting to number 5, that's that's actually a goal for you, right? It'll get easier with practice like everything else does. So if you can actually get yourself to 5, the key is if you want to activate even faster your parasympathetic nervous system is you do even in, even out as a practice to get to 5. And then you would start to do even in, extended out, which means adding another second or 2 seconds on the exhale through your nose. And it allows you to deplete all of that carbon dioxide and it trains your body to take in more oxygen. And so that part, as you get through, but getting to 5 for a lot of folks is really challenging. It took me a little while to figure out how to get that where it felt smooth, where I wasn't going. And so just that whole nasal breathing aspect of it is really helpful. So that's another piece of a strategy. I'm going to share with you another strategy that I think will be helpful. The even and even out, I'm going to teach you the most simplest ones that activate your parasympathetic nervous system. One thing that I want you to know, if you are an athlete or if you're a runner or anything like that, just practicing nasal breathing is not going to be helpful if you're doing anything aerobic, right? That exhale through your mouth is super important. It's just that when you are in maybe the stress mode, that exhale through your nose, it's that piece. And we also know that folks who hyperventilate, it's usually through their mouth. And so that nostril breathing is actually super helpful for that piece to kind of avoid that. There's a lot of research right now about nasal breath and breathing work, and it's called the oxygen advantage, where they're actually focusing on folks who are mouth breathers tend to be, they're looking at the research right now, tend to snore more, they have sleep apnea, they're talking about asthma and ways, and especially with young children and special needs students, they tend to be mouth breathers as well because their systems aren't fully in balance. And so they're really trying to train for that as well. So just a little tip if you're wanting to, go into more performance breathing aspects of the work. Another way that we do know that your body is reacting, we had talked about the stress and where you feel stress in your body. We do know that you are holding it in. So we work with a professor. His name is Victor Carrion, is at Stanford University. He did a research project with us and studied our curriculum that's available. And just as an aside, I wanted to make sure everyone here knew that we're a private operating foundation, so everything we do is donated service. We don't charge districts for anything. All of our resources are free. They're all in English and Spanish. So I just want to put that on the table because I didn't want anyone to think that the district is paying for anything. We are completely donating our services and have across the country. So one of the things that I do want you to know is that Dr. Carrion shares with us that where you feel stress in your body, the way that your body works is that you have to use those same exact muscles to combat the stress that you're holding in. So if we've been staring at our screens for, many, many days and many weeks, I would imagine that the back of your neck here is a little sore and then really just sort of that little hunched over feeling. My mom calls that chicken neck, where if you're bent over all the time, looking at your phone and scrolling or being on your computer, that can actually have detrimental impacts on the little bones that are growing. So you get like bad posture in certain ways, but this one is actually going on the back of your neck. So one of the things that we talked about breathing, and moving and then resting. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just give you one movement strategy that might be super helpful. We actually just take, we're going to sit up nice and tall, and we're going to actually have an elongated spine. The reason why that's important is it allows your lungs to open up, and so you're getting good lung capacity and a nice tall spine, but soft shoulders. So you don't want to be stiff because you don't want to, create too much. So soft shoulders, nice tall spine, open lungs. And you're going to actually take your hands and you're going to interlace them like this and go out this way. And you should be able to feel even just a tiny bit of stretch there. And then we're just going to go up and look up at the inhale. We're going to inhale and look up, and you're going to stretch out. And we're going to inhale. And as we exhale, we're going to go back down, and we're going to round out our back a little bit. And you're going to go and turn your back and go all the way down and exhale. Okay. And then we're going to go back up again on the inhale and stretch up. Look up. You can get a nice stretch over your shoulder. And exhale down. I'm going to inhale up again. Inhale. Put your head back. And exhale down. And even on this, you want to remember to practice your inhaling. You want to make sure you're breathing. Inhale up. And exhale down. What you don't want to do is forget to breathe. And last one. Inhale up. And exhale down. Okay. And that, we're going to shake out our arms a little bit. And there's going to be another twist for our movement. We actually will start with our seated nice and tall, soft shoulders. This time, this is going to be a little bit strange maybe, but we're going to take, doesn't matter if it's your left or right, but I'm going to use my right hand, and I'm going to put it on my left knee. I'm going to take my left hand, and I'm going to go around the back of my chair, and I'm going to give myself a nice pull. So that's sort of the movement. And then I'm going to put my neck back this way. What I'm going to do is go inhale with my hand on my opposite knee. And I'm going to take that arm and go around, and I'm going to inhale and twist. I'm going to hold this for 5 breaths. Inhale through my nose and exhale. You should feel a nice stretch on your shoulder if you're going to pull back with your chair. A nice stretch on your lower back and your shoulders. We're going to hold it for 5 counts. We're on inhale and exhale 3. Inhale, exhale 4. Inhale, exhale 5. Some of you might be feeling a little popping in your spine. We're going to inhale and go back to center. Okay. So we're going to actually put your hand on your knee. So it's the opposite hand on your knee. So on the opposite knee. And then you're going to take your hand over your shoulder and go the other way. So put your hand on your knee, your opposite hand on your knee. Yep. And then now you're going to take this, yep, to go on your left hand, and that's going to go on the back of your chair. The other way, the other way. Yeah, that's right. But you're going to go actually twist your body this way.
If I'm having trouble with it, I'm sure other people are. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you're going to go on your knee, and then you're going to actually just take your hand and you're going to put on the, there you go, just like that. There you go. Now you can use your elbow to stretch a little bit. You can feel that on your shoulder pull. Or you might be able to just use your hands. You can just twist this way, and you're going to just give your spine a nice twist. And you're going to inhale for 5 counts and exhale. So we're going to hold it for 5 breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale 3, exhale. You should feel a nice stretch. You might be popping your spine a little bit. Inhale, exhale, inhale, last breath, exhale, and we're going to inhale and go back to center.
I will say I've never been the most coordinated of people, and people probably didn't see me because the way Google Meet works, but I look like kind of like a pretzel where I had my arms all folded around. So, yeah, thank you for straightening me out there.
Not a problem. And we're going to go ahead, and this time we're going to stand up. Okay, so if you can just go back, I don't know if you can see me, so I apologize for my chair. So if you can stand up, okay, and we're just going to call this, this is half moon. And what you're going to do is you're going to stand up nice and tall. It gives you out of your chair. And I highly recommend doing this every hour between your classes. And it can even be 30 seconds if you are teaching remotely. I don't know what your remote schedule looks like, but for my girls, if they're remote, they're on back-to-back Zooms all the time. And so it just to get yourself out of your chair. Okay, so you're going to take your left hand is just going to stay on your left leg. Your feet are about shoulder width apart. Don't lock your knees. You can just do a nice little bend, right? Don't lock your knees because you don't want it to hurt anything. You're going to take your right arm and then you're going to go up and inhale. Okay, and then you're going to just go half and bend. And you're going to slide your left hand down your leg and you're going to feel a nice stretch on your side here. The reason why this is really important, and you're going to inhale back to center, go down. Okay, you're going to inhale up, exhale down to the side. You do a nice stretch. Inhale up to center and exhale down. Okay, inhale up. Exhale, slide down like a half moon or crescent. You can inhale up and exhale down. One last time, inhale up and exhale, slide like a crescent. Inhale up and exhale down. And you're going to notice that we're moving with our breath and our body to try and coordinate, because what you're trying to do is train your body to be in sync with the breath and the movement. The other thing to remember for your breathing and your motor activity is that when you start to what it does is it activates different parts. We find ourselves when we're stressed and have anxiety, we tend to close everything in. That's where you're feeling all of the stress on your shoulders, your neck, if you're calculating things this way. But every time we're stressed, we actually get insular and get closed in. And so one of the things that we try to do is actually stretch you out. And every time you inhale on the big movements and exhale on the ones that close you in. So that'll kind of help you remember the coordinated breath. So I'm going to go there.
Well, I like something that you were talking about, which is the idea of doing this hourly. And I know
Yeah.
talking to Jamie Smalley, and I had a conversation with a couple of our health folks, mental health folks, and one of the things that they were talking about is using these tools regularly so that you're kind of regulating yourself throughout the day. Is that kind of the thought there from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we end up tending to do as adults, especially educators, I know you just want to, we're used to grinding things out, right? You go from teaching a lesson to maybe a little bit of a break. There's a reason why educators have the highest, urinary tract infection rates in the country, right? Because we're on one of those set bell schedules. So all of these sort of things are impacting health in extraordinary ways that I think people don't actually think about until you start to really diagnose and kind of take apart a little bit of the data. We also know that all of the stress and anxiety, if you don't start to, it's not the stress. So there's a great article called The Corporate Athlete. It's by two researchers. It was written in the Harvard Business Review about 20 years ago. But one of the things that it just has stuck with me for so long is that they say, professional athletes, so they studied professional athletes for many, many years. Professional athletes, if you think about it, we always are getting compared, right? Educators get compared to everybody, right? Mechanics, building the plane as it's flying, all kinds of different kinds of things, and athletes as well. But professional athletes spend the majority of their time training. So they are practicing, they're bulking up, they're training their breath work, their muscles, they're just training. And they really are only performing about 15-20% of their time, if even that, maybe 5% of their time. It's for the big game, which is about an hour, 2 hours, depending on how the sports minutes work. But it's really that performance that's high intensity, but for a very short amount of time. Educators, on the other hand, are like corporate athletes, like CEOs, and you're the CEO of your classroom or of your school if you're a principal, or of your district if you're the superintendent or administrator. We end up performing 99% of our time. It's performance all day long with people, with interacting with the community, but we rarely ever give ourselves recovery time. So it's actually not the stress, and you can see that in all the documentation in the literature. It's actually not the stress that's detrimental to us. It's actually the lack of intermittent recovery. And so the recovery time that your mental health professionals have shared with you, absolutely, you have to give your body a chance to restore and really give yourself permission. That the reason why we call this a reciprocity of self-care, we also know there is a study out in British Columbia, and they did a study with teachers and stress. They took the cortisol samples of the students in the classrooms where the teacher had reported high incidence of burnout and stress. They found that teacher's classroom, her high burnout and stress and anxiety those students in her classroom or in the teacher's classroom had higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, than control groups with teachers that did not report it. So we do know that the stress is contagious. They actually call it a stress contagion, but we also know that the joy is contagious as well. Every one of us, if we walked into classrooms where the teacher is just joyful, it doesn't have to be sort of, I don't mean like toxic, toxic positivity. We're not into that. But really, when they go in and they just are all cylinders, that you just want to be around them because they just sort of get you. Kids know the same thing. Kids, the relationships that are there. One thing I wanted to share with you all is that there's a lot of research right now in the neuroscience that when kids are in high trauma right now, and you may have students that are experiencing high anxiety themselves and trauma. One thing that we do know, there's three things that actually help them. One is that the adult interaction with highly nurturing adults provides a real solid antidote for kids. That you're giving them a dose of good relationships that actually helps students, children in trauma, recover much more quickly. Those relationships are stronger and actually have long-term health impacts more so than peer relationships. So that's in the literature right now and the research coming out. Number two, really being able to give an explicit reason why the stress, right? Allowing children to know why and how. The neuroscience is really clear, and knowing that it's not them and it's not their fault, but they're reacting to certain conditions that they've been trained to react to. So that's number two. And number three, mindfulness, I know, can be misconstrued in lots of different ways, but mindfulness in the research and the literature, the impact of knowing when your body feels, the way your body's communicating with you, and identifying that and finding some strategies for finding quiet, to be able to be in a mindful state, just being aware of your body, how to calm yourself down, even to the nasal breathing. That is actually another antidote that they say that is helpful for supporting students. One thing that we do know is that educators are probably the least selfish group we know across the country. And the reason why we focus on educators, we've served over 75,000 of them in the last 3 years, is because we want, from an outside perspective, not your district, but from us, complete strangers, to tell you how important you are. And when you take care of yourself, not only are you helping your own health, your own long-term health, your blood pressure, your heart, all of those things that are actually impacted by stress. But also, when you take care of yourself, you actually become a better caregiver. And the trauma that people bring to you, the sort of, our collective trauma with, the pandemic and all the things that you're going through, you don't have to go through it alone. And taking care of yourself is actually super beneficial and has a reciprocity effect that is more profound than if you actually just internalize everything and sort of go insular. It doesn't mean you have to go out and say, I'm caring for myself, nothing like that, but really just finding small ways in which you can do a few things. One is, I know it's really hard, but getting a good night's sleep, actually, that's when your body restores itself. So trying to figure out ways and conditions in which you can fall asleep faster. Doing things that are healthy for you, that just gets you out. It doesn't have to be just in the quiet, going out into nature, and you live in these beautiful environments. Hopefully the fires are over for now, but just being outdoors, even for a short amount of time, is actually, the research is very clear that cortisol is reduced there as well. The good nutrition, whatever you put into your body is the fuel that you're, so if you are a cookie, fiend, it might feel good for a little bit, but in the long run, it doesn't actually help you sustain that level of energy. And then also being able to have really good and strong relationships. And so we focus on the relationship aspect of schools because we do know that when you're feeling better about your own well-being and your care, that you feel, you have a little bit of store to, be able to sort of re-energize yourself. But again, it's the restorative time, the time that you allow yourself to refuel, recharge, is probably the most important piece in your own well-being. And it is not selfish at all. Your body is only, can only do so much before it starts to break down. And if you're starting to feel yourself in that sort of breakdown mode, and especially with, there's the chronic conditions of worry, and it leads to anxiety, it can also be very, very detrimental. So finding small moments of time. What I'd like to do right now too, because I know you guys have a long sort of day ahead of you and weeks ahead, I'd love for you to just have a moment and then I could answer some questions, but we went through breathing, moving, and then now I'd like to go through rest. And so I'd like you to do is this time you don't have to sit up tall. If you're at home, you can lay down on the floor. You can be, a nice, and if you want to lay flat on the floor, you can, or just lean back in your chair. You can put a head on your desk, anything like that. This is guided rest. And so what I'm going to have you do is just focus on just listening and kind of pinpointing where I direct you to. So if you feel safe and comfortable, you can close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can go ahead and just have a soft gaze and find a point, either if you're lying down or sitting, just a soft gaze. And just want you to focus on your forehead and relax your forehead. And focus on your temples. Unclench your jaw. Just let your jaw hang in your mouth. And let your tongue just kind of hang loose in your mouth as well. Just let it all relax. Notice your ears. And see if you can just relax the muscle right behind the back of your neck. And just a nice, steady breaths in and out through your nose. Relax your neck and drop your shoulders. Relax your elbows and your forearms. And relax your wrists. Just notice your fingers and relax them. And notice the rise and fall of your chest. And relax your back. Notice how it feels on the back of your chair or on the floor. And just let it go. Just let your body sink into the chair or the floor. Relax your hips. Relax your thighs. Just notice your knees. And let them just relax. And notice your shins and your calves. And just let them go. And notice your ankles. Loosen them. Just let them fall and hang. And notice your feet, your toes. And just let them relax. And clench your jaw again. And just focus on your breath. The rise and fall of your chest and your belly. Just notice. And if you pay attention, see if you can hear your heartbeat. And just take in the quiet. And when you're ready, I'm just going to have you lift your hands over your head, take a nice deep inhale, and stretch it out. And this time I'm going to have you exhale through your mouth, a nice cleansing breath. One more in, out through your mouth. And wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. And when you're ready, you can come back in. Just let your breathing go back to normal. So a couple things I just wanted to, as you're getting sort of back into your space, we did the anchor breathing when we first started. That was about a minute. and we did even in, even out. And then we did 2 stretches. We did chair, cat, cow, and then we did the half moon, so the 2, and then we just did guided rest. All of those combined took us a total of 6 minutes. And so I want you to know, just, I don't know how you felt before or after those, and if we're in a different format or setting, I would have you notice how you feel before or after. But it took about a 6.5 minutes, and I just want you to know how we have 1,440 minutes in a day. And so, can you put into your schedule moments, even a minute in the morning, midday, and at the end of the day? If you do it between the times you have meetings or the time between you have Zooms or online remote classes, anything that you can just give your body a little moment to reset itself, to give yourself a little bit of rest. And again, like I shared, we've got stressors, but there is a stress that is good. It gets us motivated, gets us up in the morning, it gets us going, it gets us excited to, maybe see our kids and whatever that good stress is. And that optimal stress is actually high performance optimal stress too. You need the stress to perform as an athlete, as a teacher, as an educator. It's actually when it goes to another section where it starts to become bad stress. It's that stress that accumulates in your body when you start to get overwhelmed, your thoughts start to ruminate, and you end up having these just negative pieces where you feel like you just can't get out of your funk. That negativity and that stress, we end up having that piece is what we're trying to keep going back and forth. So it's that arc of stress that is going to be super important for you to pay attention to. Every one of us, when we carry all that stress in our bodies, we call that allostatic load. And every one of us can carry allostatic load. When it gets heavier and heavier, it's actually how you differentiate between, sort of just stress and then toxic stress. Allostatic load, if you can imagine, is like the imaginary backpack that we all carry. And every time that backpack gets heavier and heavier to carry into a room or into our lives, we want to try and unload those imaginary bricks from our backpack. And we do know that when you use the muscles in your body in the same manner in which they were put into that backpack, you have to use those same muscles to take out. So that's one of the things that we practice today. So with that, I apologize. My computer is still dead. And so
I think you're a great sign of resiliency through this whole thing. I mean, if we didn't know that there was supposed to be a slide deck, I don't think that anybody would have missed it at all. You were just amazing through this whole thing.
Oh, thank you.
I will mention we did get a few comments and a few questions. I'll first start with Ryan from maintenance. He wrote not a question but a thank you. We need more of these. This is a great way after a massively stressful weekend, and even more so past 7 months. So I love the fact that he reached out and mentioned that. I would join into that. It feels a little bit like, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit. I so often use the analogy of throwing, when something isn't done, throwing it in my backpack and carrying it up the hill. And I think so many of us in education, and I think about our teachers and staff that are out there in our schools are doing that on a daily basis, just loading more and more in that backpack just to get the work done and keep the school open and all that kind of thing. And I think that there's in our society a little bit kind of this like anti, like you can't stop, like the sign of a good employee, quote unquote, is those that troop on and don't take a rest. And what is that about American society that has that built in? It's crazy, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I would say 2 things. One, I do know the extraordinary gift of teachers and educators that go into the system. And when we say educators, we're including everybody that works in the school system, right? If you touch the life of a child, you're in that category. So maintenance, food service workers, the whole crew. We do know that every single adult interaction, and oftentimes kids, especially the ones that are in high stress and trauma, they actually have these great relationships with the custodian, the bus driver, the food services manager, because they're often the ones that have no judgment and they just care about the child. And so there are these, moments of, I think, real clarity about, especially for kids. They know, right? They're that sense. They know who's bogus and who's really genuine. They can read that very clearly. One thing I also know, we've actually had webinars with kids. They've shared with us, which is, because kids are amazing. They've shared with us, they worry about their teachers. They can feel their teacher's stress this entire time. They know, and they, often say, how are you doing? And for the kids to turn around and ask their teacher, I think is really an important indication. We do know that our emotions drive our behaviors. And actually, it's the emotions that drive our learning. So if kids or adults are not feeling safe, if they're not feeling heard, if they're feeling overwhelmed, their emotions are actually either going to help them learn whatever the content is or whatever the meeting structure is, or it's going to keep them from wanting to learn. Their emotions are driving their cognition. And in fact, learning is driven by your emotions, not by your cognition. As soon as all the emotions and all of the sort of SEL skills are sort of in place, the learning is pretty exponential. But it's actually getting to that place where your emotions aren't driving your reactions, really trying to be much more responsive. So,
Well, I love the fact that you also, brought up the whole that it just, 6 minutes of our time today. I mean, I think so often that you think that it takes some sort of, massive spa day or something like that to really decompress. But just these little things, not to say that that's not important. Let's put that out there. But being able to take a couple minutes during your day on a daily basis, maybe rewind this session. And I do want to mention too that Katie Mills from our PD department did mention that we do offer free mindfulness sessions in partnership with PassageWorks. All employees are welcome. Sessions are listed on the professional learning website. There are English and Spanish options, so I do want to put that out there as well.
Fantastic. So you're already ahead of everyone else. That's all.
I do also want to mention, I've mentioned a little bit about talking to these mental health folks in our district. The two folks that I was talking to, and we're going to be putting up an article, we're going to do a couple articles with them, but Katie McGee and Jamie Smaller, they were awesome to take a little bit of time out of their Friday, and they had just been rushing around all their schools, trying before schools close. But I think one of the things that they talked about is the idea of like a lifeline for folks, that just knowing that there's other folks that you can call on when you feel stressed. And they encourage people, educators, as you said, all of our folks in our school district, we consider educators, to be able to reach out to a counselor, in their building, if they work in a school, somebody that a trusted friend that they can just confide in. I mean, that's part of the deal, is knowing that there's other people that care and will listen to you, and you can vent, or you can seek help if you need it. I mean, that's part of the whole picture.
Yeah, and I think also too, just we've been working a lot with actual school psychologists and social workers in school systems, and also with the court system, that they end up taking on a lot of that. And so their secondary trauma is pretty real. And so just to address and make sure that we take care of your mental health support workers as well, because they often are the ones that will create all of these sort of systems, but then forget that they are just as important. And so really trying to remind them too that how they take care of themselves is also super important. So I love that, because I think it's just, just your commitment as a community, and that you are there for each other.
A question or a comment from a teacher over at Fairview High School said, I use mindfulness to start every class. And I think that it's one of the most important skills I can teach students in my English classes. And then she kind of goes on to ask, how can we get our PTO and district to start supporting mindfulness training again? I'll definitely pass on that feedback to the administration. And again, I also had somebody else from the PD department chime in to say that we do have a guided mindfulness beginning November 30th. All are welcome to attend. And I've got the section numbers for those that are interested and have a pen nearby. Section 25483 in English, 25484 in Spanish. We'll put those all on the website so that you can find those. But all those things are really important. Yeah.
And I don't know if you all know this, but Headspace, we worked with them for a few years, and they actually ended up in the last year giving the Headspace app away for free to every educator. So if you go on the Headspace website and you use your work email address and put your school district and your school name, you can actually get the access to the entire app at no cost. They're going to do that. They have all the educators in North America and Germany and Australia. So if you anybody in your system can get access to that app for free.
That is amazing. We have some more thank yous coming in. Let's see here. Thank you for all that you shared today. This has been so helpful. Another thank you. Chi, I don't think there's we may have to have you come back as a regular guest. And to that point, one of the questions that they had is, okay, so this slide deck that you were going to present, I don't know how much you covered in it. They were wondering if it might be available. I don't know if you want to come back and talk more about that, or if it's something that we should share out to them separately.
Yeah, I'm happy to send it to you. So I just want you to know this is what's happening on my computer. It's still doing it. So
She's not making this up. There it is, right there, the bar of death.
the only thing it wasn't the beach ball of death, you know, that little
Oh yeah.
ball. Those are long gone. But yeah, I'm so happy to share the deck with you. One thing I was going to share with the teacher who teaches the mindfulness, it's so great that you're offering that to the kids. One thing that we have heard back from young people is that if we don't give them the neuroscience behind why these practices might work for them, they tend to just some kids find it burdensome and really just kind of a thing that the teacher makes them do versus if I know that I have control over some of the neuroscience, how my brain and body are reacting. They tend to love knowing the neuroscience helps them actually get deeper into practice, and so we have had that in the field as well. So just another piece. All of our resources, if it's okay for me to just share that out again, just as a reminder,
Yeah.
everything is free and online. You can just sign up for an account. We have pre-K through grade 12, English and in Spanish curricula. We have videos in English and Spanish as well. So if you don't feel comfortable or confident in sharing some of these breathing strategies, they're all recorded. And we also have virtual PE classes. So for any of your teachers who might want to use some of these, movement sequences, they're all in English and Spanish, and they're on the public site. So you're free to download them into your own, if you have Canva or whatever LMS system that you might use, you're welcome to put those in there. They're all on Vimeo. So
This is your website here,
yeah,
which is I just got rid of the bar that says it's Pure Edge Inc. Inc.org. So it's an org.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's all right there under free curriculum. So
So you just have to sign up for an account and you're good to go. So, and we do have, we have donated days for the district as well. So if there's a larger, implementation process that you might want to have us do with your team, we're so happy to donate that service as well. And again, this is a reminder that we're donating all of our services and no funds are being spent by the district to have us. And we have had that same mission and sort of driven work across the country as well. So we don't charge for any of our services.
we had somebody that missed the name of the app that you had mentioned. What was that called again?
Headspace.
Okay. All right.
Headspace.
And we'll make sure to put a link up on the staff website on that. Somebody else mentioned the Calm app. They've used that as well as some mindful curriculum, smilingmind.com.
Yeah.
You,
I
that they've used.
And the good news is there's a lot, out there. I think the hardest thing is to figure out what works best for you in your classrooms. Yeah.
Excellent. Another thank you. We need this more to survive, more of this to survive this year. So again, just a huge thank you for taking time. I do want to mention just one other thing was kind of off topic, but it's worthy of me addressing, even though it was a little bit outside of what we were talking about today, completely outside of what we were talking about today. Somebody asked, how's the district going to advocate for schools to be considered essential services and for the community to take action to temporarily close all essential services, non-essential services, gyms, restaurants, bars? And I do want to address that because, again, going back to this deal of we understand, and I think supervisors are there to hear your concerns and your frustrations. The district's here, obviously, to entertain, questions in regards to how are we going about these things. I do know that the board, starting on last Tuesday, had voiced concern publicly about sort of the way that us as a society, us as a state has gone about this, that schools have been behind sort of businesses being open, and that we are sending that feedback to our contacts in government, since we don't necessarily control that world, but for public health and for those kind of things. But again, I think that part of the reason why we wanted to have the show was just so that there was an open opportunity to have conversations and to have people not bottle this all up, to exactly what she was saying a little bit earlier, that it's so important for us to address these things. And so between the amazing ideas that you were able to provide to us today, and again, we'll provide this up online for folks, but and then the curriculum and all these things, plus that opportunity hopefully to have your voice heard and to hear back from us. I think this is all part of the same picture. So any last thoughts before we close up today, Chi?
One thing I will say is I think the fact that your district is prioritizing self-care is a big deal. I think the districts that we do know that have great relationships with their, their educators, are when the leaders are really focused on making sure that everyone, just knows how important they are as human beings first and foremost. So with that, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for being patient with me. And of course, now that we're ending, here's what happened. I mean,
2020, you knew it was going to be done as soon as the show is over. Well, Keith, thank you for your time. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for Weekly Wake Up. I hope you have a great week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.